April of 2009, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year for 2008, and that was really exciting for me. I know you're all very proud of me, thank you. And August of 2009, I had a meeting with my supervisor, and we were going over my budget. She told me that they were imposing an abortion clinic quota, and by the way, we were going to be expected to double the amount of abortions that we had provided the previous year. The only thing I knew about abortion was what Planned Parenthood had told me. Our goal at Planned Parenthood was to get a woman on the table and off the table in 5 minutes. And so to introduce an ultrasound during that would take an extra, 3 to 5 minutes. And we were trying to do 30 to 50 abortions a day. So, you just don't have that extra 3 to 5 minutes per patient. But this doctor told me that it would be interesting for me to see it. It would be a good learning opportunity, educational opportunity for me. And so I was asked to come into the room, and my job during the abortion was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen so the doctor could, in his words, visualize his target. And I watched as the cannula, the suction tube, the suction wasn't turned on yet. I watched it go into the woman's uterus, and I watched it go right up next to the side of this little boy, and as it touched his side, he jumped. I guess people think that what I saw next was the worst part, and it was bad. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to intervene, I just stood there and I did nothing.
It's important that we know what's happening in the abortion industry and what a woman is walking into when she enters into an abortion facility. Now, the reality of abortion is not pretty. It's not fun to talk about. But we as advocates need to know the reality of the situation when it comes to abortion. For example, in one abortion facility alone in Philadelphia Women's Center, there were over 6,000 babies aborted just in the year 2017. But we want to encourage you as an advocate to approach every woman that you encounter as a unique person with dignity, with a story and with her own situation that has brought her there that day, and to never encounter her with generalizations or to see her as a statistic. So let's talk a little bit more about what is abortion and what goes on behind those closed doors.
Most women don't find out that they're pregnant until they've missed their first period. And by the time they're coming to the abortion center, they're usually at least 6 to 7 or possibly 8 weeks along at the very least. So at the time of conception, when the sperm and the egg come together, all of the genetic material that needs to be present for this person to grow and become the person that they'll be for the rest of their lives is actually present. Then as they develop and they grow and the cells are maturing and coming together, they reach the 5 to 6 week point. And this is when that heart begins to beat. At 8 weeks, the internal organs are actually present and functioning. At 10 weeks, each one of these little fingers and toes have fingernails and toenails. And at 12 weeks, this baby is moving around. The mom might not even feel it, but the baby's actually doing somersaults inside. There have been lots of studies done which show that at 18 weeks, all of the nerves are present and this baby can actually feel pain. This is really sad because the majority of D&E procedures occur at this time when this baby can feel the pain of the procedure. 21 to 22 weeks is the time when the babies are first viable outside of the mom's womb.
I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions. I came to realize that killing a baby at any stage of pregnancy for any reason is wrong. Today I'm going to describe a first trimester medical abortion. This is a procedure in which the mother swallows pills in order to terminate her baby, and it is performed up to the 10th week of pregnancy. The lining of the mother's uterus breaks down, cutting off blood and nourishment to the baby, who then dies inside the mother's womb. A first trimester surgical abortion is used typically from 5 to 13 weeks of pregnancy. This is a 14 French suction catheter. It's clear plastic, about 9 inches long, and it has a hole through the center. and is inserted through the cervix into the uterus. The suction machine is then turned on with a force 10 to 20 times more powerful than your household vacuum cleaner. A DINI is performed between 13 and 24 weeks of pregnancy. Because second trimester babies are so large, late-term abortion requires that the cervix be prepared 24 to 48 hours in advance with laminaria. Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed inside. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. With babies this big, they don't fit through catheters this size. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. The abortionist then collects the baby parts and reassembles them to make sure that there are 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete. A third trimester induced abortion, which is performed at 25 weeks, takes 3 or 4 days to complete. On day 1, the abortionist uses a large needle to inject a drug called digoxin. A high enough dosage of digoxin will cause fatal cardiac arrest. When the needle pierces the baby's body and the digoxin takes effect, the life of the baby will end.
Oftentimes, with abortion procedures, the mothers are harmed. The number one thing that I have heard about over and over through scientific literature is the increased incidence of breast cancer in women who have had abortions. Women who choose abortion often suffer mentally with anxiety and depression that lasts a lifetime, even possibly an increased risk of suicide. During the procedure as well, in the process of dilating the cervix or opening up the cervix, sometimes that cervix can become damaged. This can sometimes lead to problems with preterm delivery and problems with their babies not being well in the future because they had to be delivered way too early. Sadly, there have even been women who have died because of the procedure. It's a blind surgical procedure that is usually not even done with an ultrasound machine. The mother can have uncontrollable bleeding, the mother can have severe infections, and oftentimes the people at these centers aren't prepared to take care of the women in these situations, and that has sometimes led to death of these patients.
It took me a week to leave. I can assure you I did not want to leave my job at Planned Parenthood. I made a lot of money, and I thought, how are we gonna survive? You know, for 8 years of my life, those people had stood outside of my clinic, and they had lovingly called out to me all that time. And they had always told me, Abby, if you ever want to leave, we'll help you. And I never thought I'd take them up on it. I sat down and, guys, I didn't know what I was going to say. And I was crying so hard I couldn't even say anything. Finally, the only thing that I could even get out of my mouth was that I have been wrong and you have been right. They just looked at me and they just said, it's over. It's done. And I figure in my life here on earth, that may be the closest thing that I ever experienced to the scandalous grace that God gives us.